Well, as we tend to do the morning after the night before, we'll pick up some of the pieces of what happened overnight. There's the American journalist Beth Gardner joining us from central London. Here in the studio, Mallory Factor, who is Professor of Politics and indeed a former advisor to the US politician Rand Paul. Very good morning to both of you. Beth, I can start with you. It's in the bag for Hillary.
It looks pretty good for her, yes. I think she was a little bit nervous going into last night after last week where she was 20 points ahead of Bernie Sanders in the polls in Michigan and then came up short. So it was a little bit hard for her, I think, to trust some of the polling. But yes, it was a very good night for her. Sanders may stay in the race for months still to come, but I don't think anyone thinks he's got too much hope of gaining the nomination now, short of a very dramatic reversal of events. And I think you're going to see Hillary start to look towards the general election and towards Donald Trump.
OK, well, look, we'll focus a little bit more on the Republicans because, in a sense, Mallory, not for the first time, it's the more interesting story the morning after. What to focus on? Rubio bowing out in the way that he did, the conundrum for the establishment. What do they do? Well,
Rubio got hit by the Ides of March. He should beware of the Ides of March. Trump looks like he's on a glide path. Kasich needs 110% of the remaining delegates to get the 1237. So it's almost impossible. He's praying for an open convention or a brokered convention, and that normally doesn't happen. And if it does happen, a lot of those Trump supporters are not going to want to vote for somebody who basically steals the nomination, because they would consider it stealing the nomination.
And they would really kick off, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. And think about it. Whether you like Trump or not, he is the leader, and he really will have a lot of delegates. He may get the 1,237. He's more than halfway there. He only needs about 60% of the remaining delegates to actually get to that 1,237.
Is there a gleaming white knight somewhere for the establishment? Can they pluck a figure from obscurity and say, OK, we will run you against this unstoppable force?
There's two people who would like to be the white knights. Mitt Romney still has not given up that idea. He would love to be that white knight. And people are trying to get Paul Ryan. They like Paul Ryan, and they want him to be the white knight. I think Kasich is going to be the vice presidential nominee, and that's really what he's going for.
Beth, we've contrasted before, haven't we, the styles, the mood of the rival camps and all this, because by comparison, the Democratic race feels characterized by, good nature, temperate language, almost bonhomie. Why, given the way things seem to be turning, will Sanders not just throw in the towel now and say, OK, we've had a good run, it's over to Hillary?
Well, I think Sanders is a real movement candidate. I think he's got a set of issues that he and his supporters feel very passionate about, and that is mainly around the issue of economic inequality in America and sort of corporate power. I do think there has been a surprising amount of bitterness, actually, between him and Hillary. It's turned a little bit uglier as Hillary got a little more nervous about her standing, turned some increasingly negative attacks on him. And I think that what she's going to hope for now is that even, if he continues to campaign through the coming primaries, that he will ultimately sort of get on board, swing in behind her, and try to bring his supporters with her. I think she would love to see him, go out and campaign on some of the college campuses and bring some of the young people on board. I think that's been one of the weaknesses for Hillary that has been shown up by Sanders, which is that she's been losing young people by really shocking margins. I'm sure she'd love to see him kind of try to rev that demographic up come November.
Mallory, did you see any evidence in what happened last night of a sort of Chicago effect? Any afters from the fact that there was the big event that had to be called off because of protests, that people perhaps felt that their freedom of speech had been infringed, or any after effects at all?
Yes, I think there were some after effects. Think of it this way: if you were staging a wedding for your children, and some people wanted to come into that wedding and actually disrupt it for any number of good reasons, but you rented the hall, how would you feel about that? Well, that's what the Trump supporters and a lot of people are feeling about what happened. This was an organized movement through MoveOn.org, professional signage. I mean, it was a professional movement against him, and people feel that freedom of speech is all well and good, but this was a private event paid for privately. If they want to be outside and protest, that's all well and good, but to come in and disrupt, a lot of people felt that that was not good. And they're actually, I think that got Trump some votes.
Do you really? Beth, what was your sense looking back at what happened in Chicago? Does it play well for Trump, that?
No, I don't think it plays well for him at all. I'd have to disagree with Mallory a little bit there. I mean, certainly people may or may not feel that protesters were unruly, but protesters are protesters, and I think that there was a lot of upset in many different quarters at, seeing not only a presidential candidate, but at this point a overwhelming frontrunner for a major party nomination, standing up there and appearing to encourage political violence. I think it's another line that Trump has crossed. Yet another reason for the establishment of the party to, really disdain and fear him. I don't think it has appeared to hurt him among the Republican primary voters. He had a good night last night, although he certainly would have liked to pick up Ohio. But, I think that some of that imagery of him standing up there and talking about punching people in the face and carrying people out on stretchers is, that's not the kind of thing that plays well in a general election with the general, the broader American population. I think the Republican establishment very well knows that, and they're increasingly concerned about what his nomination is going to mean for their party.
Beth, 10 seconds, Mallory. Ted Cruz, we've not mentioned Ted Cruz. Will he go the way of Marco Rubio now? What happens?
There's a joke going around Washington, and I don't particularly agree with it, but why do people dislike Ted Cruz immediately upon meeting him? The answer is it saves time. He is one of the least popular senators. So it's between Trump and Ted Cruz. The establishment is very unhappy.
Mallory, we don't get many good gags on this show, even less from visiting American guests, so we appreciate that. Thanks very much.
When are you going to ask me a question?
Mallory, Beth, thanks both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Still to come.